Imagine this: a billionaire CEO, one of the most powerful men in the pharmaceutical industry, is told he has just months to live, terminal cancer. No treatment in his empire of cutting-edge research can save him. But then, something unexpected happens. A young janitor, working at the hospital where he receives treatment, claims she holds the key to his survival, not because she's a doctor or scientist, but because of an old family secret passed down through generations. This isn't just a story about medicine. It's about hope, redemption, and how two lives collide when one man's death sentence becomes another woman's chance to change the world. The scene opens with Alexander Blackwood stepping out of his sleek silver Mercedes. His tailored suits, immaculate despite the toll his illness has taken on his body. He's not just any patient. He's the face behind Blackwood Pharmaceuticals, a company known for its groundbreaking innovations. Yet here he is, sitting in yet another sterile consultation room, hearing words no amount of money can erase. We've exhausted all options. As Alexander leaves the hospital that day, lost in thought, he bumps into Elena Vasquez, a quiet cleaning woman who seems harmless enough. But what neither of them knows yet is that this moment will set off a chain of events neither could have predicted. Elena isn't your typical janitor. Beneath her simple uniform lies a fierce determination, fueled by loss and legacy. She works nights as a cleaner, so she can study medicine during the day, dreaming of finishing what her late grandmother started, a cure for pancreatic cancer. When fate brings her face to face with Alexander, she sees more than just a dying man. She sees an opportunity to bring her grandmother's work to light. And Alexander, at first glance, he dismisses her as insignificant. But when she drops cryptic hints about his failing treatment, curiosity gets the better of him. What starts as skepticism quickly turns into intrigue and eventually desperation as he realizes she might be his only shot at survival. What makes this story truly compelling is the tension between these two worlds. On one side, there's Alexander, a man who built his fortune on profit margins and calculated risks. His life has been defined by control, precision, and success, measured in dollars. Then there's Elena, whose journey began in a remote Peruvian village, shaped by tradition, sacrifice, and the belief that healing should never come with a price tag. Their meeting isn't just serendipitous, it's symbolic. It forces both characters to confront their values, their flaws, and ultimately, their humanity. As the narrative unfolds, we see glimpses of their shared history before either of them even realizes it. Decades ago, Alexander visited Elena's village, seeking knowledge from her grandmother, a revered healer. He left with samples of plants, promising to develop treatments that would help millions. But those promises were shelved, deemed unprofitable, by his corporate team. Now, years later, Elena stands before him, not as a villager grateful for his visit, but as someone determined to hold him accountable for the potential he ignored. The irony is impossible to ignore. The very knowledge Alexander once dismissed might now be his only salvation. But this isn't just a tale of revenge or redemption. It's also about trust. How do you place your life in the hands of someone who admits to lying about who they are? For Alexander, every decision comes with risk. Does he take a leap of faith on Elena's untested compound, knowing it could either cure him or kill him faster? And for Elena, the stakes are equally high. If she succeeds, she'll prove her grandmother's wisdom to the world. But if she fails, she risks losing everything, including the future she's worked so hard to build. Their relationship evolves in unexpected ways. Initially, Alexander views Elena as little more than a desperate gamble, But as weeks pass and her treatment shows promise, he begins to see her differently. She's not just a poor girl with a dream. She's a force of nature, driven by purpose and conviction. Meanwhile, Eleanor struggles with her own doubts. Is she doing this for the greater good? Or is there a part of her that wants to punish Alexander for abandoning her village all those years ago? These internal conflicts add layers of complexity to their interactions, making their journey all the more gripping. The turning point comes when Alexander faces a critical decision. After receiving the first dose of Elena's compound, his condition worsens before it improves. Fever, pain, delirium. It's unclear whether the treatment is working or killing him. During this time, Elena stays by his side, monitoring his vitals, drawing blood, and refusing to give up. It's in these moments of vulnerability that their bond deepens. Alexander, used to commanding boardrooms and dictating terms, finds himself dependent on someone who technically shouldn't even be in the same room as him. And Elena, who once saw Alexander as nothing more than a symbol of corporate greed, begins to understand the weight of his responsibilities and the loneliness that comes with them. Just as things seem to be heading toward resolution, new questions arise. Why does Elena's notebook mention genetic compatibility? What secrets lie buried in her grandmother's research? And perhaps most importantly, what will happen if the treatment works? Will Alexander honor his promise to make it accessible to everyone, or will old habits die hard? These unanswered questions hang in the air like storm clouds, hinting at challenges yet to come. By the end of this introduction, viewers will be hooked. They'll want to know whether Alexander survives, whether Elena achieves her dream, and whether the power dynamics between them shift permanently. More than anything, they'll be invested in the human element of the story, the raw emotions, the ethical dilemmas, and the universal desire for second chances. Because at its core, this isn't just about curing cancer, it's about curing the parts of ourselves we've neglected, the promises we've broken, and the legacies we hope to leave behind. Stay tuned for the next chapter, where we dive deeper into the science behind Elena's miracle compound and uncover the shocking truth about why Alexander was destined to cross paths with her all along. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. As Alexander's condition worsened, the tension in his penthouse became almost unbearable. Elena barely left his side, her exhaustion evident, but her resolve unshaken. Every day brought new challenges, fever spikes, moments of delirium, and excruciating pain that even the strongest medications couldn't fully dull. Yet through it all, there was an undercurrent of hope, fragile but persistent, driving them forward. For Elena, this wasn't just about saving one man. It was about proving her grandmother's life's work mattered. For Alexander, it was more than survival. It was redemption. He had spent decades chasing profits, ignoring the very knowledge he now depended on for his life. The subplot of Elena's past began to unfold as Alexander pieced together fragments of her story. During one of his clearer moments, he asked her about the notebook he'd seen, filled with notes in Spanish. Elena hesitated before explaining how her grandmother had discovered something extraordinary. The compound worked differently, depending on a patient's genetic makeup. Some responded dramatically well, while others showed no improvement at all. This revelation added another layer of complexity to their situation. It wasn't just luck or desperation. It was science rooted in centuries of indigenous wisdom, refined by modern research. But what truly unsettled Alexander was when Eleanor revealed that his visit to her village 20 years ago hadn't been forgotten. Her grandmother had taken a blood sample during his illness then, not to diagnose food poisoning as he'd thought, but to test his genetic compatibility with the treatment. She knew back then that if he ever needed it, the compound would work for him. This revelation shook Alexander to his core. He realized he wasn't just a random beneficiary of Elena's efforts. He was part of a plan, years in the making. The guilt of abandoning her grandmother's work weighed heavily on him, especially knowing how many lives could have been saved if he'd acted sooner. Meanwhile, Elena wrestled with her own inner conflict. While she believed in the righteousness of her mission, she couldn't ignore the toll it took on her emotionally. Every sleepless night, every failed experiment in the early days, every moment of doubt had led her here. And now, watching Alexander fight for his life after placing his trust in her, she felt the enormity of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. Dr. Mercer remained a constant source of tension. Though initially skeptical, he couldn't deny the results they were seeing. Still, his loyalty to conventional methods made him wary of Elena's approach. "You're playing God," he warned her one evening as they reviewed the latest scans. "If this goes wrong, it won't just be Blackwood who pays the price. It'll be everyone who trusted us." Elena met his gaze steadily. "And if it works, if we can save people who've been written off as hopeless cases..." Dr. Mercer didn't answer, but the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes said enough. His internal struggle mirrored the larger ethical debate surrounding their work. Should they push boundaries, even at great risk, for the chance to revolutionize medicine? As weeks turned into months, the stakes grew higher. News of Alexander's miraculous recovery leaked within the company, sparking both excitement and skepticism among the executive team. Rumors swirled about Elena's mysterious background and the origins of the treatment. Some viewed her as a genius ahead of her time. Others saw her as a liability. Tensions escalated when shareholders demanded answers, threatening to derail the project entirely. Alexander found himself caught between two worlds: the ruthless corporate environment he'd built and the compassionate vision Elena represented. In a pivotal board meeting, he silenced the room with a single statement: "I didn't build Blackwood Pharmaceuticals to play it safe. We have a chance to change the world. Are we going to take it?" Behind closed doors, however, Alexander grappled with doubts of his own. What if the treatment stopped working? What if the cancer returned stronger than before? These fears were compounded by the growing bond between him and Elena. Their relationship had shifted from patient and caregiver to something deeper, a partnership forged in vulnerability and shared purpose. But beneath the surface lay unresolved questions. Could he truly trust someone who had lied to him, even if her intentions were noble? And could Elena forgive him for dismissing her grandmother's knowledge? All those years ago, the climax approached as Alexander's scans revealed unprecedented progress. The tumors had shrunk significantly, and his strength was returning faster than anyone anticipated. Yet instead of relief, this development brought new challenges. Elena insisted on accelerating clinical trials to help other patients sooner, but regulatory hurdles threatened to delay the process indefinitely. Frustrated and desperate to honor her grandmother's legacy, she proposed a bold idea: bypass traditional approval channels and release the treatment directly to underserved communities. They don't have time to wait, she argued passionately. Every day we delay is another life lost. Alexander faced the toughest decision of his career. On one hand, rushing the treatment to market without proper protocols risked catastrophic consequences. On the other, delaying meant denying help to countless individuals who couldn't afford to wait. As he weighed these options, memories of his earlier arrogance haunted him. He remembered the villages he'd visited, the healers he'd dismissed, the promises he'd broken Was this his chance to make amends, or would fear of failure hold him back once again? Meanwhile, Elena received an anonymous letter warning her to abandon the project. The message was cryptic, but clear in its intent. Powerful forces didn't want her treatment reaching the public. Whether it came from within the company or outside remained unclear, but the threat was real. Suspicion fell on Dr. Mercer, whose behavior had grown increasingly erratic. When confronted, he denied involvement, but admitted, "There are people who stand to lose everything if this succeeds." You think curing cancer is just about science? It's politics, economics, power. With time running out and danger closing in, Alexander and Elena prepared for their final move. They gathered allies within the company, rallying support for a daring plan to distribute the treatment independently. Late-night meetings, encrypted communications, and covert operations became their new reality. The suspense reached its peak as they finalized preparations, knowing that one misstep could destroy everything they'd worked for. As dawn broke over the city skyline, Alexander stood beside Elena, looking out at the horizon. "Ready?" he asked quietly. She nodded, determination blazing in her eyes. Together, they stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next, for better or worse. The turning point came when Alexander received an anonymous tip-off. A major pharmaceutical competitor had gotten wind of Elena's treatment and was preparing to file a patent on a similar compound. The source claimed they had been monitoring Blackwood Pharmaceuticals for months, waiting for the right moment to swoop in and claim the discovery as their own. It wasn't just about business. It was about control. Whoever held the patent would dictate who got access to the treatment and at what cost. For Elena, this was her worst nightmare coming true. Her grandmother's work, meant to heal without barriers, was on the verge of being locked behind corporate walls. Alexander called an emergency meeting with his legal team and Elena. "We're running out of time," he said, his voice firm but tinged with urgency. "If we don't act now, this treatment will be priced out of reach for the people who need it most." Elena nodded, her jaw set with determination. "Then let's do it your way," she said, looking directly at him. "Release everything, the formula, the research, the clinical data, into the public domain. Make it impossible for anyone to patent." The room fell silent. Such a move would cost Blackwood Pharmaceuticals billions in potential revenue, not to mention invite scrutiny from shareholders and regulators alike. But Alexander didn't hesitate. "Do it," he said. "This isn't about profits anymore. It's about purpose." As the team scrambled to upload the documents, Elena worked tirelessly to prepare a press release that explained the origins of the treatment. She included her grandmother's name, her village, and the centuries-old traditions that had inspired the breakthrough. It was risky. Revealing too much could expose her family to exploitation, but she believed transparency was the only way. To honor her grandmother's legacy, when the announcement went live, the response was overwhelming. News outlets around the world picked up the story, praising Blackwood Pharmaceuticals for its bold decision to prioritize humanity over profit. Social media exploded with messages of gratitude, particularly from families affected by pancreatic cancer. But the stakes weren't fully resolved yet. Just as the dust seemed to settle, Dr. Mercer approached Alexander with troubling news. "There's been a breach," he said, handing over a report. Someone within the company had leaked confidential information about Elena's background, including her real name and connection to the Peruvian village. Within hours, reporters were camped outside the headquarters, demanding answers. Elena felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on her. Had all her efforts been for nothing? Would the spotlight ruin everything she'd fought for? Alexander stepped in front of the cameras, shielding Elena from the chaos. "Let me make one thing clear," he began, his commanding presence silencing the crowd. "Elena Rojas is not just a researcher or a janitor, or whatever label you want to assign her. She is the reason I'm standing here today. Without her courage, ingenuity, and unwavering commitment to her grandmother's vision, this treatment wouldn't exist. Any attempt to discredit her is an attack on the very principles of innovation and compassion that medicine should stand for." His words resonated deeply, shifting the narrative in Elena's favor. Behind the scenes, Alexander confronted Dr. Mercer, who admitted to leaking the information under pressure from rival executives. "I thought if we discredited her, we could protect the company," Mercer confessed, his voice trembling. Alexander's expression hardened. "You've done more damage than you'll ever understand. Get out of my sight." Mercer left, knowing his career at Blackwood was over. Though the betrayal stung, it also solidified Alexander's resolve to rebuild the company culture from the ground up, one rooted in integrity rather than greed. With the immediate crisis averted, attention turned to scaling the treatment globally. Blackwood Pharmaceuticals partnered with health organizations worldwide to distribute Rojas therapy, named in honor of Elena's grandmother. To ensure accessibility, Alexander created a non-profit arm of the company dedicated to funding clinics in underserved regions. Starting with Elena's hometown in Peru, he even accompanied Elena on her first trip back to the village, where tears flowed freely as she introduced him to the community that had shaped her life's mission. In the months that followed, Alexander underwent a personal transformation that mirrored the changes within his company. No longer consumed by wealth and power, he embraced a simpler, more meaningful existence. He mentored young scientists, funded scholarships for aspiring doctors like Elena, and used his platform to advocate for ethical practices in the pharmaceutical industry. As for Elena, she achieved her dream of becoming Dr. Elena Rojas, earning recognition not just for her groundbreaking work, but for her relentless pursuit of justice in medicine. The story concludes with Alexander and Elena standing together at a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new Curandera Clinic in Peru, named after Elena's grandmother. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the crowd gathered to celebrate. "You did it," Alexander said softly, watching, as villagers lined up to receive free screenings. "No," Elena replied, smiling. "We did it." And in that moment, they both understood that their journey wasn't just about curing cancer. It was about healing divisions, bridging worlds, and proving that even in the face of insurmountable odds, hope could prevail. As the camera pans out, capturing the joy and gratitude of the people whose lives had been changed forever, the audience is left with a powerful reflection. True innovation isn't born from profit margins or competition. It comes from collaboration, humility, and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to live. The dying CEO had given $110 million to a poor girl with a dream, and in return, she had given him something far greater, a second chance at life, love, and legacy.